Welcome, my name is Roger with Coder and in this segment we're going to be discussing how to search through arrays in JavaScript. We'll be covering methods that are in ES7 and ES6 along with the more basic JavaScript methods that have been around for a while now. So let's get started. Now, what we're going to be covering today is includes, find, index of, and filter. So our first method, includes, is actually part of ES7. It's came out roughly about 5 years ago, so it is quite new. If you're wanting to support more legacy browsers or products, then I wouldn't necessarily suggest using this. However, there are stopgaps that you can use in order to fill in these methods that might not exist in older browsers, which include using polyfills and transpilers. So polyfills will actually create the methods that don't exist in the older browsers, and transpilers will help you convert your more modern language code into legacy code that the older browsers can understand. So includes, in this example here, we have a 4-element array, and we search for thick scales as a string. So in this example, this would come back as true. Now, includes is really good if you're just wanting to search for the existence of an element in the array. So it just returns a true-false value. The parameters for includes are the first one, which is the value you want to search, and then the second one, which is optional, is where you want to start searching for your element within the array. Now, just as a reminder, includes is strict comparisons, or uses strict comparisons, in the sense that if you were to search for, in this example, 80 as a string, it would come back as false because it is not the same as the integer version. Next up is find, and find was introduced as part of ES6. Find uses a function as its parameter, as its first parameter, and it lets you do more complex searches. For example, in this example, we have our basic array, but we're searching for any element that has less than 12 characters. And this is going to return the first element, not all the elements, so keep that in mind. So, and this will return the element itself. Now, you can tack on multiple conditions like they have here. We're searching for an element that is a type of string with an index value of 2. So the first, when you pass your function, it'll be the first parameter of that will be your element, and the second parameter will be your index. Okay, you can search for, there are find index, which also takes a function which will basically just return the index of the element of where it's at. Next up is index of. Index of is more legacy JavaScript, so it is quite common in a lot of browsers and Node versions. Index of, like includes, uses strict comparisons. So, and there actually the two parameters for index of will be, the first one is the element you want to search for, then the second parameter, which is optional, will be where within the script or the array that you want to search. We'll be actually discussing more about performance later in the video, so stay tuned and we'll keep going and discussing that. So index of will actually, if it does not find the element in an array, it will by default return -1, because 0 is an actual element within an array or an indexes, so which is why they return -1 instead. Now, if you pass the secondary parameter to say skip the first element and it doesn't exist anymore within that array, it'll again return -1. So here we have an example of an array with thick scales 80, 4-foot tails, round snout, and 80 again. So you see here, we look for 80 as an integer, and it'll return that it's in the first index. Now, there's also last index of, which will return 4 when you search for it as well. So, because that is the last place it would be in. You can use index of to get the fourth value as well. If you just say skip the first, start from the second indexes, and then start searching from there. And next here is filter. Filter is really good if you have a large array and you're wanting to search for all of the elements within that array. It'll actually return an array itself of whatever elements match the conditions that you provide. So filter takes a function, and you can add whatever comparisons you would want. However, filter does tend to be the most intensive when it comes to performance. So if performance is something that you want to keep in mind, it might not be the best to use. So next, here is a test script that I wrote to test the performance of every command. Now, in this, what we're going to be doing is we're defining up at the top that we're going to be creating an array of randomly generated characters or words of 1,000,000 records. And then we want to do 5,000 searches across that array to kind of take a look at how the method compares with the rest. So the first scenario we'll be running is going to be against an index of scenario on a flat array. So you see here we're kind of defining the time, the start time. Then we're searching for strings to find. Now this is the scenario start time, not necessarily how long it takes for the method. This is just how long the scenario will run for. So, but within each string defined, you'll notice that I'm searching using the index of method. The next scenario is going to be using the includes method, okay, which is very closely related to the index of. It uses very similar methods and test style. Next, we're going to be using the find method, which uses the function here for the comparison. Next up, we have the find index scenario, which takes a function much like find and returns whatever the index value is. Okay, next we have using index of on an object array. So what we're doing here is we're actually kind of creating a data map where we're basically extracting the values from the object that we want to search through. And then we're actually doing our search against the flat array using index of. Our next scenario is using filter to search for all of the array elements. So we're getting an array back and we're searching for any elements that match the value we're searching for. And then our last scenario will be covering extracting the values. Oh, actually, no, it's not extracting the values. We're basically searching for all the indexes. Actually, yes, we do extract the values here. And then we search within those indexes and we try to find every place where this element exists from beginning to end, rather than like index of or find. Find will return only the first element. So this will just return an array with every location, every index of where this element exists. And we have further down some utility functions that helped to run these test scenarios, and then kind of our run scenario function where it runs everything in order. So I did create a JS fiddle with this code in place, so that way if anybody's interested they can run the test themselves. This will be available in the description below, but just keep in mind that the results that we get from this test are going to be based on the devices you run on. So for example, mobile devices might have longer run times than, let's say, a desktop or laptop. So let's jump to the results. Here we have the results of the comparisons across the various browsers. Now keep in mind, Node.js, Microsoft's new Edge browser, Chrome, and other Chromium-based browsers all use the V8 engine. Okay. Firefox, on the other hand, uses its own SpiderMonkey engine for running JavaScript. So you can see here, in the index of scenario, we have a median of 3 milliseconds per call. So median is more or less basically that we've had more 3-second results than we have of it from any of our other methods, or any of our other results. And the includes, we have a similar result to index of, where we have a 3 median millisecond response time. Now, what I've done here is highlighted the more performant methods between the different engines. So as you can see here with the V8 Chrome-based engine, that index of includes are very performant. Okay, they're the fastest compared to Firefox. However, Firefox excels in being able to search through more complex objects and comparisons. Now, depending on what your targeted goal is, there's different ways that you'd want to take a look at doing the comparisons. Like if you're wanting a more general approach, you might want to use the more rudimentary functions or methods in order to search for an array. So what we have here is, further down, you can take a look. This is the performance difference between the different engines. So we see index of and includes for Chrome has about a 50% difference or improvement, whereas find and find index with SpiderMonkey or Firefox has a roughly 72-66% improvement over Chrome. Index of on a object array, though, see where we're using the more basic commands to search through an object array by looking at the map instead of through the whole object, we see that Chrome does have a slight edge over Firefox. But at the same time, we'll kind of cover the differences between using index of and find. And then we have filter. Okay. Now here's our median performance difference between find on an object array and index of on an object array. So we'll kind of go back here and I'll show you the difference. So we have okay, here we go, index of and then find. So here's find, we're passing in the function and say we want to search for all of or actually we want to find the first index where the name equals the value we're searching for. Rather than finding the index, we're saying, okay, we created our map here. Now return me the first value or the first index in that map. Okay, so we go back to our results. You can see that we have a pretty distinct difference here. Index of was able to search a lot faster across those object arrays using the data map. Okay. Next up, we have the median performance difference between filter and find all indexes. Okay, so you can see here, filter on the object array took 32 milliseconds. However, the find all indexes, which I'll go jump back to the code. So you can see here, we're using filter with a defined function. And then this is going to return the array of all of the elements that match our comparisons. Find index, we similarly created a map, and then we have a do while loop where we're basically saying search for all of the elements using index of. And then every time we find an index, we're going to loop through again and say start from the element after we found this index. So going back to the results, you see that Chrome actually had a nearly 70% improvement on find all indexes using a while loop as opposed to using filter. Now on Firefox using SpiderMonkey, there was a more modest improvement, so it was about 33%. Now, something to keep in mind when doing your development for using commands like includes or find. Those commands are newer commands that were added to JavaScript in ES7 and ES6. However, there are polyfills that you can use which will recreate these methods for older legacy browsers or run engines like Node. Node actually introduced the includes method in Node 6. Well, that's it for this video. If you found this information useful and would like to hear more, keep an eye out for future videos. Like the video, subscribe to the channel below, and leave your comments. Have a good one. Until next time.